Dr. Professor Solman and the Kunstmuseum in Linz for having me here today. In this talk, I will outline some aspects of the current developments in the contemporary art market that involve the use of online tools, platforms, and services. I've structured this overview into 3 actions that correspond to different perspectives on selling art online, business models, and even market niche. So just to set up a time frame, you can see this timeline that I will focus on the developments that have been taking place since the beginning of this decade. And this timeline, you see some of them, it's not all of them because many things have been happening, but most of all is just to show you that a lot of things have been going on right now. They've particularly reached the emergence of new online platforms and services and a heightened presence of new media art in the art market. But of course, not everything starts in 2010. There are other events that have led to the things that are happening right now. So if we go back to the late 1990s, the beginning of the 2000s, we can see how the art market, the contemporary art market, already had an interest in new media, mainly on the internet. There were a series of tests of building on platforms for online auctions, which went wrong, which caused great economic losses, and that is one of the reasons that the art market kind of backed up from going online. But as time goes on, nowadays we can see that it's obvious that the art market is globalized. There's a lot of art, as you can see in this map, a lot of galleries, a lot of artists traveling around just to be seen, just to have the opportunity to be sold. And actually, on the internet, we can distribute this art, potentially reaching a large audience, and creating another sort of distribution. Another aspect is that, of course, as in this quote by Greg Shirky, what has happened is that all these technologies have evolved enough, have been enough integrated into society to become commonplace, particularly e-commerce, which was not well developed by the time that Sotheby's tried to do their online auctions. Now everything is working much better, and then is when all this technology can be integrated in the particularly robust art market. So this app that was published in our forum in 2012 is a good example of that. How here it's the VIP art fair, which was the first art fair to happen exclusively online. Was trying to convince the readers of our forum, these collectors, that since they were already buying all sorts of luxury items online, then why not buy art? So to do so, they invited them to go to an art fair where they didn't have to travel to a large warehouse, but they just had to open their browser. So many art galleries and entrepreneurs have seen the internet as a communication channel, a way to reach audiences without, most cases, neither changing the art detail nor the way it's sold. An example of this is the VIP art fair, as I told you, that simply what they did is they did not redefine the concept of the art fair, they just took it online. And they did so mainly because, as Noah Horowitz tells here, he was the director of the art fair, they realized that already many galleries were showing artworks to collectors in iPads as images, so the long-held assumption that nobody would buy an artwork if it was sight unseen maybe was not true anymore. So what they did is they took, as I said, the art fair to an online environment. So they set up a website, they opened it for a brief period of time in which people could access the art fair and watch the booths of each gallery, which had this shape, which looked exactly like what you see when you go to an art gallery. They even reproduce the structure of art fairs in which larger, more powerful galleries have bigger spaces than emerging or smaller galleries, which of course doesn't make sense in in an online space, but they had to reproduce this hierarchy of the art market, which comes from a physical space. They just translated it into an online space. However, the art fair, did not work well. There were some problems there in the fact that, well, on one side, the galleries did not sell much. They did not sell at very high prices. And also they found themselves having to post the prices of the artworks, which is something that is usually kept to a talk with a collector. It's not just displayed next to the artwork. So that already became a problem, as one of the co-founders explains in this quote. So all in all, the VIP art fair was a failed experiment, but it set up a good, an interesting example of where things could be going. Already in September 2012, they decided not to have a temporary art fair, but to have a platform where collectors could access and see the artworks on display by the galleries, contact the galleries, and buy the artworks. No? So, as I said before, the concept here in the contemporary art market is to create a platform where collectors can browse and look for the same art that they find on the galleries, and then contact the galleries. The VIP art fair, which later became VIP Art, was bought by ArtSpace, which is a platform that was actually doing that. They just expanded. They continued nowadays to do this work, to bring all this art from the galleries to collectors. And not only in 2014, ArtSpace was bought by the publisher Waelder, which also is promoting their own publications inside this platform, which is of course addressed to collectors and art lovers. So there is this synergy between the publisher and the online platform to kind of set up what is interesting in the art world, what is good to buy and what is good to follow. Another example in this sense, which is quite interesting, is Artsy. Artsy is another platform which also was founded with the idea to document a large amount of art and show it to art lovers or collectors. Now, the interesting thing with the story of Artsy is that it started out as a young engineer's dream of making the task of finding our works more efficient and less intimidating. So this is interesting how in this talk, which he gave in a startup competition, he thought that the art market was inefficient because you have to go from gallery to gallery to look for the art you would like to buy, and not all of the art was on display, and that many people felt intimidating and wouldn't enter the art gallery. So he thought that by making this online platform, all this inefficiency and intimidation would go away, and everyone would be able to find the art they look for. So the interesting thing here is how Artsy, which was first developed with this idea as a kind of a social network, received the investment from galleries, the Larry Gagosian and other investors. They put in $6 million. They completely changed the direction of the platform. So now it became a large platform addressed to collectors and to art lovers, which also has a bit this idea of showing the art that is worth looking and that is worth buying by documenting every show, every art fair, or at least the ones they are interested in, and providing collectors or users with the possibility of accessing a large amount of artworks, which, like you see here, are presented with a preview where you can see the name of the artist, all the information. You can contact the gallery if you want to buy it, or of course you can see how it would look if you had a museum in your home, which is an interesting thing also when you deal with this online platforms. Now, another thing that is interesting about Artsy is how in this last year they have focused mainly on the editorial content, so writing articles and explaining what is going on in the art world, which is also one of his main aspects of how the contemporary art market is interested on the internet as a place where you can focus all the attention and tell your followers, your users, your subscribers what they have to buy or what is worth watching. So creating the image of what the contemporary art looks like today, which is quite a powerful thing. All right. Following on, another big company that got interested in all this selling art online is Amazon. And Amazon is an interesting example because as a leading e-commerce site, it decided that it could also sell art. So it opened a fine art section without the home and garden section and started to sell art there. So Amazon actually sells all kinds of products, and he doesn't care about white cubes or the separation between art and commerce that is usually practiced in the context of art galleries and the context of the art world. They just take the artworks and they present it as they do any other projects. So any other product, sorry. So as you can see here, an artwork sold at Amazon looks like any other product with its price, with its discount, with its add to cart button. So this is really an e-commerce site selling art. And what was interesting is that when they launched in 2013, this was the most expensive artwork they sold, this Monet, which was $1.45 million, which you could also preview on a home environment, and which generated all sorts of comments, because of course in an Amazon webpage you can put customer comments, and people started making fun of this painting. Which is an interesting thing, because this is what happens when you have an e-commerce site where your customers can put in comments, which is something that doesn't happen in the contemporary art market. So the interesting thing here is to see how, I won't go into details in this chart, but the idea is to compare, to see that the contemporary art market is going on, when it goes online, it enters the realm of e-commerce, and e-commerce has its own rules. So there is a bit of a problem here, an adaptation of a trial and error situation, which is still ongoing. However, the art market, the online art market, seems to be thriving, it's going up, according to this Hitchcock online trade report, which we might take with some skepticism, but some numbers are there. And we also have to see that this market is booming, but it's always with some limitation, with prices below £10,000, and what is mostly sold are paintings, prints and photography, which is normal because if you think that you're buying something in a three-dimensional space as a screen, it's quite logical that the most sold items are art that is already three-dimensional. So this is good news for anyone selling a painting below £10,000. But what about art in a digital format? Well, you can download it. This is what artists have been done for many times, transferring the artworks, transferring the files. This is a historical example. Aurelia Lina sold one of her net artworks in 1998 to Aurea Harvey and Michael Samin. They shook hands on top of a mountain. And what they did, the artists, they created a new folder in their website called Possession. And inside it, they put the files from Aurea's artwork in this kind of frame, which reminds us of a certificate of authenticity. So here it is, and then this is what happens. What usually artists do is they just transfer the files. But they also do all sorts of things. Many different strategies have been developed by artists over the years. I will not go into that. I can point you to this text that I wrote about some of these strategies, outlining there the different strategies carried out by artists, which are very diverse, but which usually don't set up a standard. They just solve a particular problem for a particular artist. They are nevertheless very interesting. Many times, mostly what artists do is they put the file in some storage device and hand it over as an object. This is the main thing in which art is sold as objects that are transferred to a collector. This is an interesting example, an artwork by Joe Hamilton, which is a collage in Tumblr. It's also a video, and it's also a book. He decided to sell it in this form in which he sells the frame with the USB inside the frame. I must tell you that you can remove the USB so you can use it, but the interesting thing is how the frame sets the conceptual space to tell you that this is an artwork, and how the storage device becomes fetishized as this object that contains the artwork. So the artist himself says that someone who buys this work, when this edition doesn't have an exclusive access because it's also online, but they have what he says is official token of ownership, which is an interesting thing when we're dealing with artworks in a digital format. So talking about ownership, we have Sedition, which Christian already talked. If you know a bit about it, it's a platform that launched in 2011. It launched by selling what they call digital editions of artwork. They started selling like cheap JPEGs of paintings by Damien Hirst or animated videos by famous artists at very low prices. These editions, when one buys it, they stay within the Sedition server. So one can only have access to tablets or computers or smartphones. And then the videos cannot be downloaded, the images can be downloaded, but they cannot be printed. So actually what the collector gets is an access to a particular file that always stays within the server of Sedition. They also provide the buyer with a certificate of authenticity, which is actually just a JPEG, because it's a digital certificate of authenticity, and as such is actually just a placebo, just something to give a sense of ownership, which is really not there. And in order to illustrate how unreliable this kind of document is, I found out that at some point the website of Sedition would offer the user the opportunity to preview how the certificate of authenticity would look like before he bought the edition. So what I did screenshots of all the artworks they had in the curated section, and I put them together in a book with a few of the certificates of the artworks that I actually have bought. Now the thing is that both certificates are indistinguishable, which tells you how much unreliable this kind of document is, and how in this digital realm we're playing with the concepts of the traditional concepts of the art market, but become just a fiction. When I asked Rory Lane, director of Sedition, about how ownership became a fiction in Sedition, he told me that collectors get a sense of ownership when they are able to resell the artwork. So you can resell the Sedition when it's finished inside Sedition's own marketplace. So it all stays inside there. And as you can see here, some works can really get a higher price. But of course, we're dealing with something that you bought for £5, and then maybe you sell it for £60. So it's like you can play art flipper if you want, but in a very small scale. And also relating to what Christian said about the scale, this work that you see here by Virgil Kela is actually one good example of this, because you can buy it, but if you see it in your iPhone, you will see absolutely nothing, because it's a large set of numbers. You need actually a projector to actually see something, but doesn't prevent from the artwork being sold. But this is also an interesting aspect to talk about. Okay. Another platform selling digital editions that allows people to download them is Data. So Data, which launched recently, also sells these editions of artworks, provides also a digital certificate of authenticity, which also cannot be printed, and provides the file with a set of restrictions on use, so that although one one is allowed to download the file, you are not allowed to make it available to anyone else, and you're not allowed to display it in public. You're just allowed mainly to show it to your own computer. This is actually not new. This is what usually happens with video art. So most collectors of video art get a copy of an artwork with very strong restrictions on how they can use it, mainly restricted to the home environment. But then, with artworks in a digital format, we enter in an interesting situation in which, as Nelson Goodman suggests in Languages of Art, the file, the artwork goes from being autographic to being allographic. So, just like in music, the file makes the artwork become a notation, something that is performed every time it is played on the computer, and then there is no difference between the original and the copy. So all of the artworks can be said to be original. So this poses a problem when you're distributing all these artworks as files that are mainly made to be distributed. And different companies are coming up with different solutions. An interesting solution is one that is being offered lately by another startup called Neo. Neo is one good example at developing a system for preserving these artworks and ensuring a secure form of distribution, in the sense that the user, the artist, the galleries can upload a large file. When it's uploaded to the cloud service, it automatically gets copied in different formats according to the current formats in which video is being used nowadays. And this continues on, so they consider that this kind of preservation is future-proof, in the sense that in the future, when new formats come up, all the artworks in the server will be also updated, so that theoretically may ensure that the artwork will live on. Then it also provides a system of distribution in which the artwork gets sent to a player that is owned by Neo. The player is connected to a screen or a projector. When it is connected, it performs a performance test, so it can establish which is the best version of the video of the file to be played in that particular screen. And since there is a direct connection between the server and the player, theoretically the file is always encrypted, it's always within this ecosystem, and this is meant to prevent a situation in which usually happens with video art, that display copies go around in CDs and DVDs or USB sticks, and there is no control about where these copies of the artwork might end up. So this is another example which shows us that when we deal with digital files, we are all the time with this problem of enforcing, controlling where this file goes, and sometimes limiting the rights of the collector. The other thing is the display. So it's not a new idea to set up a screen at home, hang it on the wall if it was a painting, and then display the art there. Already around 2003, Steve Sack was talking about this idea of selling frame and unframed software art. So unframed software art would come to the collector in a CD, framed software art would come to the collector in a touchscreen that could be hung on the wall. This is an image from a site that he created in 2005 called the Software Art Space, which was dedicated at selling unlimited editions of software art, so that people could play on their home, in computers and on screens. But recently, since 2011, a series of companies have taken this idea again and developed what they call digital art frames, which are basically flat screens with an integrated computer connected to the internet, and which can be controlled via a smartphone app. So you have here, for instance, a frame, Electric Objects, another company, Mural, the Pig, which was already mentioned by Christian Paul. An overview of this screen shows that each screen is aimed at different audiences, some people who want original artwork, some people want to decorate their homes with images from art museums and different price ranges, different qualities, different sizes. Mainly this idea is that you can now have a screen in your home and you can display any art you like. But the thing is that each of these devices creates their own ecosystem. So when you buy a device, you're stuck to their collection. And so this creates another situation in which each device is trying to gather as much artwork as they can in order to have customers buy the device and then use it. So this is quite similar to if we think about some Spotify, Netflix, etc., a service which is based on its collection, so on what they have to offer. Even Symposium has joined this idea of putting everything on a frame, but what they did is basically they sell a piece of wood where you can stick your iPad. But it's quite telling that they have decided to do this at this time now, because it shows that there is this need to have finally some space that is dedicated to show this art. Okay, another company working recently is a digital art device that created also a whole system with screens, with a player, with an app, and also a curated selection of curated exhibitions that would go to collectors. So collectors would subscribe and get this art in their homes, and also receive a catalog with the artworks that are being displayed. So again, we have this idea of a screen in a home environment where you can display the art. But what is interesting about that is that they finally decided to not have their own system, but take an off-the-shelf system, so an Apple TV, and basically put an Apple TV on a screen so that people can access the content, and then reduce the whole business model into a subscription-based model. So basically, this time it's not so much about selling a device, but selling a service where subscribers are supposed to get a continuous stream of art in curated exhibitions. So this leads me to the third action, which is to subscribe. So in an age of access, it comes as no surprise that we can experience art in a subscription-based model. And here, that is quite telling. The change they went even in their denomination from the digital art device to digital art on demand. So, and changing their model to displaying exhibitions, to being in contact with some art events and bringing them to their platforms, and then providing users with the option of subscribing in different ways. So they will be having all this content delivered to their screen of their choice. Sedition is doing the same thing now also, creating an outstream so that artworks in their collection can also be accessed not bought in editions, but accessed as an ongoing stream. Other companies such as Black are doing the same. And in general, what we get here then is the situation in which we, instead of buying our work and then framing it, we buy a frame and then we put the artwork inside. We basically set up a space at home for the display of work, and the artwork, in a sense, becomes content, and collectors, in a sense, become users. So this is not necessarily bad. This is a change of an interesting situation, which leads us to consider other situations, other ways of experience, or sort of collecting art, which go to a different audience. So what Sedition did when they started to sell their artworks by famous artists at low prices was trying to reach for this audience which is interested in art, but does not have the money to buy art at the prices of galleries. That grabbed attention, as you can see in this article that was published with this headline, you know, Kunstmuseum is yours for £50, so making this short circuit between the price of the artwork and the work of a famous artist. We can think about this as going for the long tail, this long tail of users that could potentially be collectors or people who kind of buy art in large editions at low prices. If we apply this idea of the long tail to the art market, we could get something like this, in which on the right side of the graph you have a large amount of people who cannot afford an expensive artwork but would like to get them. So what Sedition did was try to connect these two ends of the tail by providing this artwork for famous artists pretended to be original to this long tail of users. And this leads us to think then about this other audience, this other potential audience that could be interested in buying art in a particular way. So to wrap it up, I would like to also mention this quote by Waelder Benjamin. So it's famous how he mentioned about the losing of the aura in the age of reproducibility. But he also said, which is interesting, that this being reproducible frees the work from his existence on ritual, and how we can get into new functions. You know? So the image can get entirely new functions would make us think that we could rethink the whole assumptions that we have around the artwork and the art market. Certainly, there will be more digital screen-based art in people's home than ever. It may be in a screen, or maybe soon a LED wall, an augmented reality artwork at home. Anyway, there will be many other ways in which art can be experimented, and I think it's important to keep an eye of where this may take, where this can change the roles of the artist, the gallerist or provider, and the collector. This is, of course, one part of the art market, which is a vast market with many options. It doesn't erase other forms of selling art, but I think it's certainly something that is going to be developing and that we must keep an eye on.